Welcome to the deep dive. We have a really fascinating stack of sources for you this time, all centered on Paul's letter to the Galatians.
Specifically chapter 4.
Right, chapter 4. And the analysis we've pulled together, it really dives into one of the most intense metaphors Paul ever uses: labor pains.
But he applies it in a way you might not expect. It's not just about, the difficulty of ministry. It's about the deep, ongoing work of divine love itself.
It's a really powerful way of looking at spiritual growth. So our mission today is to unpack a couple of big ideas from these sources.
Two main things, really. First, we have to talk about this fundamental shift in a believer's identity from slaves to child. That's the groundwork Paul lays in chapter 3.
Okay, and the second thing?
The second is this really surprising concept that the sources call the two labor pains.
Two of them.
Yeah, one is historical, it's done. The other is, it's daily. And both are essential for spiritual maturity.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really get the whole labor metaphor, we first have to understand the freedom that comes before it. We have to start where Paul starts, with this huge identity shift.
Exactly. And our source material really stresses this. You just can't grasp chapter 4 if you haven't sat with chapter 3.
Right.
Chapter 3 is all about establishing the foundation, that our relationship with God is based on absolute unconditional grace.
The promise, not the law.
The promise given to Abraham.
Yeah.
It's not based on conditional human effort. The law. The law doesn't save you. It just shows you why you need saving.
And so chapter 4 takes that theological idea and makes it deeply personal. It's not about what you do anymore. It's about who you are.
And he uses that potent analogy, with Abraham's two sons, Ishmael and Isaac.
Hagar and Sarah.
Exactly, Hagar and Sarah. And this analogy, it's critical because it basically forces you to choose your family line.
So Hagar is the law.
She represents the law, the striving, the slavery. She has a child through human effort on a human timetable. And that child, the slave, is always, trying to work off a debt.
Constantly worried about messing up.
You're always aware of that yoke on your shoulders, always afraid of not meeting the standard.
But then you have Sarah.
Right. Sarah represents the promise, grace.
Here.
And she bears the child of promise, Isaac.
Yeah.
And that identity, it's a complete shift. You're not a slave anymore. You're a child, a son.
And the difference is just staggering, because a child doesn't work for their inheritance.
No, they just get it. It's a birthright. It's based purely on relationship.
And Paul highlights the most incredible result of this new identity.
Oh, absolutely. He says that once you're adopted as a son, the Spirit inside you lets you call God Abba.
And we need to pause there, because that's not just father in a formal sense.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's this incredibly intimate Aramaic term.
Yeah.
It's daddy. It implies this complete unguarded confidence.
The freedom to just run into his arms.
Exactly. Knowing you are totally 100% accepted. That's the new identity. That's the freedom.
And that's the absolute baseline for everything else. But here's the tension, right? Just because we get that legal status of a child, because we're born again, that doesn't mean the old slave mindset just poof, disappear.
Not at all. We are saved, but we so often still act like we're trying to hurt our spot at the table.
We have the identity, but we don't have the full maturity yet.
Precisely. And that process of changing our behavior, our thoughts, that whole inner landscape, well, that's the long, hard road of sanctification.
Which brings us to the next section. The metaphor shifts from identity to this idea of persistent suffering. And this is where it gets really interesting. Paul in Galatians 4:19 is writing to people he knows are already adopted children. He knows they're saved, but he says he's suffering labor pains for them. Again. So if they're already born, why a second labor pain?
Well, this is Paul defining two very distinct kinds of effort in ministry. And both for him feel like this life or death agony.
Yeah.
The sources are really clear that we have to distinguish between them.
Okay, so let's define the first one.
So the first, labor pain. That was the initial pioneering agony. It's what it took to preach the gospel in the first place and bring about that first spiritual birth, regeneration.
This was Paul suffering to get them saved.
Yes. Think about what the sources say he went through. I mean, being stoned, beaten, shipwrecked, constantly risking his life just to bring the message. That was the acute one-time event to bring them from death to life.
So the first pain is about birth, but the second one, that's about...
maturation.
Right. What does that second labor even look like? They're already spiritual infants.
Well, the second labor pain is fundamentally different. It happens after they're saved. This isn't a quick crisis.
No.
It's that ongoing, relational, just, enduring groaning and sighing. It's the continuous toil of nurturing believers who are already in the family.
And he's feeling this because he sees them slipping.
He sees them wanting to go back to the law,
Yeah.
trying to put that slave yoke back on their own necks. And for him, it's just agonizing.
It's like the prolonged stress of watching a beloved child just make terrible choices.
Exactly. And this pain for him, it continues until they finally shed that old slave mentality, fully step into their identity as a son,
Yeah.
and something deeper happens.
What's the end goal?
It's that the image of Christ is fully formed in them. The source material points to the NLT translation of that verse, Galatians 4.92.
What does it say?
Oh, my dear children, I feel as if I'm going through labor pains for you again, and they will continue until Christ is fully developed in your lives.
Wow. Until Christ is fully developed. That gives it a timeline.
It does. Regeneration is instant.
Mm.
Development, that can be a lifetime of effort.
And this brings us to what I think is the most profound part of the analysis. This isn't just a metaphor for Paul's own ministry.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It actually reflects the entire redemptive journey of the triune God toward us.
That's it. If you map Paul's two labors onto the bigger picture, you see the Father, Son, and Spirit doing their own two labor pains for humanity.
Okay, let's start with the first one, the past, completed pain.
Right. The first historical pain was that unspeakable labor pain of Jesus on the cross.
The ultimate agony.
It was the single, decisive, acute event that paid for sin and moved humanity from death to life. Regeneration. That work is finished. It's done.
It's the foundation for everything. But now we have to talk about the ongoing reality. If the cross was the ultimate act of suffering love, how can the sources even suggest that a second, continuous pain is needed?
And this is the real heart of the analysis. The second ongoing pain happens after we're regenerated. This is what the sources call the unspeakable groaning of the Holy Spirit.
Why is that groaning necessary?
Because even though we're forgiven, that cancer of sin, the leftovers of the old self, our tendency to fear and to rely on ourselves, it's still embedded in our minds and our bodies.
Okay, but then the sources make this really provocative comparison. They suggest that the daily, relentless work of the Spirit, the groaning and the tears, might actually be a deeper and more painful love than the cross. That sounds controversial.
It does, and it raises a huge theological question. But the sources address it by focusing on one word: persistence.
Persistence.
Think about it. The agony of the cross was infinite in its value, and it was ultimate in its result, but it was a one-time event.
Okay.
The Holy Spirit's love, though, is shown in this day-to-day, moment-by-moment, relentless engagement with our mess, enduring our weaknesses, our failures, our 2 steps forward, 1 step back journey for decades.
So it's the sheer duration, the persistence of the pain, the commitment to stay with us in our imperfection until the image is complete.
That's what makes this second labor so profound. It's an ongoing, active struggle inside the messiness of our sanctification.
I mean, that really reframes the Holy Spirit's work for me. It's not just a gentle, occasional nudge.
No, it's a relentless, painful, divine effort born of love.
It's something that demands our attention. We celebrate regeneration, and we absolutely should.
Of course.
But these sources are really urging us to recognize the profound, persistent cost of our sanctification, too.
Mm-hmm.
So why should you, the listener, care about this idea of God's ongoing pain? If we're free, if we're saved, why does God keep investing this agonizing effort into our daily lives?
Well, the analysis makes it really clear that God's goal is so much bigger than just getting us to heaven.
Right.
The aim is the complete preservation and sanctification of our spirit, our soul, and our body, without fault. The goal is the moment we achieve full Christ-likeness.
Perfect union.
Perfect union within the love of the Trinity. It's about total restoration, not just a ticket in.
And the goal is for us to finally fully reflect that unconditional agape love that we first received, to get away from that fearful, conditional slave mentality for good.
And that leads right into the personal application. We're encouraged to really think about this persistent, unconditional love and the Spirit's hard work.
And how do we cooperate with that?
By allowing that same perfect love to start seeping into our own everyday expression. We have to actively look at our lives and ask the hard questions.
Are my words, are my thoughts, are my actions? Are they aligning with the freedom of a child?
Or am I slipping back into that self-imposed slavery of trying to earn it all myself?
Because that relentless love of the Spirit is trying to reshape our entire operating system.
Yes, so that our words become truth, our thoughts become pure, and our actions reflect that love back out into the world.
Yeah.
That's how we cooperate with the process.
This has been a really powerful deep dive. It's revealed astonishing, relentless cost of divine love.
Yeah.
We saw that critical shift from slave to child, which was secured by this single, completed labor pain of the cross. But then we saw the persistent, ongoing cost of that second labor pain of the Holy Spirit, who is tirelessly working every single day to form Christ's image in us, enduring our mess along the way.
It just forces you to confront the persistence of God's love in a really powerful way. And it leaves us with a final thought to wrestle with. What's that? If the daily groaning of the Spirit is the continuous cost of shaping us into the image of Christ, then we have to ask ourselves, what practical steps can we take to better align our daily lives, our words, our thoughts, our actions, to actively cooperate with that profound, unconditional labor?
In other words, how do we respond to a love that endures so much for our sake?
Exactly. How do we respond to that kind of love?
That is a challenging and, I think, an essential thought to carry with us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the transformative power of Galatians 4.